Hey everyone, thank you for joining us and coming to our business summit. Today is marketing day, so we are going to be talking to Judy from Skill Bites. She is a publisher that helps people with creating business books, which is a great way to market. So, Judy, how are you?
Bill, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for inviting me to be on your summit.
Thank you. So, the big thing that I want to kind of cover today and talk about more is business books and why they're still powerful, why they're still something that people should do, and how it can market you, how it can push you, how it can add credibility to who you are. And then on the flip side of that, I also want to kind of talk about, if someone's interested in getting into helping people publish books, helping people do this kind of stuff, what does it take? What kind of things should they know they're getting into? And what the industry might be like, so that people really get a full idea of what they would be getting into.
Okay, great. Well, there are so many advantages that you get when you decide to publish a book and get that book actually out there. It really positions you as an expert or a leading authority when you're a published author. When you have an issue, who do you go to? Well, somebody who's published a book on exactly the topic that your issue is in is probably someone you're going to perceive as the expert that can help you with whatever your problem is. And so when you have your book, say, on Amazon, somebody who's searching the internet on whatever the issue is that you deal with in your book is likely to find you. So it also greatly enhances your visibility because there are millions of people searching the internet. I mean, there's millions of people just going on Amazon and doing searches for different topics. I remember when I wrote one of my first books, I got a call from a guy in Texas. My book was on building successful business partnerships. And he found my book. And so he called me and said, I need help with the partnership that my kids are in because they're fighting all the time. And I don't want their relationship to sour because of this business partnership that they have. So can you help me with figuring out how to get them in alignment and working together instead of knocking heads all the time? Now, he would never have known about me had it not been for my book. And I certainly never would have known about him because I'm in Pennsylvania and he's in somewhere in Texas. I don't even remember where. So those are two powerful advantages you get from having a book. But it's also a great lead generation tool because once your book is done, you can send it to your prospects and your customers, your former customers, your colleagues, potential joint venture partners. So, for instance, your customers may not know that you have this specific area of expertise. And so they're more likely to come to you when they find out about your expertise from your book. Or when you have a hot prospect and you send them a copy of your book, what are they going to think? Wow, he's not only written a book, but he's also sent me a free copy. So they're going to feel more inclined to want to pursue you. They become much hotter leads for you because of your book. And then, of course, there's all kinds of other opportunities with speaking engagements and radio interviews, newspaper interviews, podcasts, blog tours. There's so many ways to use a book.
Okay, cool. So let's break some of these things down. So we highlighted that it makes you look like the professional. It helps with marketing. It's a possible giveaway. You can use it to educate people. You can use it to help with your PR from booking speaking engagements based on the book, also getting radio interviews based on the book, leveraging it basically as a reason for people to talk to you. getting into newspapers for the same thing. So I want to kind of take them one at a time. So we mentioned the professional piece, and I think that's part of really the first thing that someone needs to do. So in your experience, how should someone look at themselves to be able to know that they are a professional, or at least should, like, a measure for them to understand, like, okay, I have the professionalism or the track record, if you will, to be considered this professional and write a book, have the content to do that.
For the most part, I think anybody who has been doing something for at least 3 or 4 years has built up a fair amount of expertise in whatever it is that they're doing. If you're first starting out, maybe you're in your first year or two at something, you probably don't have the breadth of experience to be able to really write a great book that's going to help a lot of people. But when you have already helped people with whatever the issue is that your expertise is in, you know what struggles your target audience has and the problems they get into and how you can help them get out of it, then you have the expertise to write a book that's going to really help those people.
Okay, and what would you say are things that, not items, but like when someone thinks to buy a book, I'm trying to figure out the best way to word the question. So, there's
Let
a
me
couple.
see if I can help you. You want to know how you can write a book that people are going to want to buy?
Yes, but in the terms of, like, so I know some people are looking for books that give them action items. Some books are looking for them that give them mental things to follow. Some people are looking for books that give them, like, business plans. Like, what are some of the things that people can, like, look for in a book, if you will?
Okay. Well, of course, one of the first things that people want is a book that's on a topic that's of interest to them. So your topic is really critical for your book. And you can do some market research to find out if the topic that you want to write on is one where there's a decent, sizable enough audience that it's likely people are going to want to access your book. For instance, you can do a search on Amazon and find out how many other books there are on your topic. It may seem a little bit counterintuitive, but if there are no other books on your topic, that's actually a bad sign. It means that there's not enough people who are interested in that topic to have other people want to write books on it. Versus topics that have lots of books. And that's where you can figure that there's a lot of interest in that topic. You can look at the rankings of the books in your topic to see if they're selling copies. A low rank, like number 1, means that that's the best-selling book in that category. And they're probably selling a lot of books. But if you see that the books are ranked in the thousands, well, then they're probably not selling very many copies.
Definitely good to know. Okay.
So that's just one aspect. Your cover, people are going to look at your cover. If your cover's not very impressive, they aren't likely to want to pick up your book. Do you have good book reviews? Do you have testimonials that people can see, oh, wow, this person got a lot out of that book? Those are pretty important for people. How recent your book has come out. I mean, if your book came out 10 years ago, it could be a really good book, but people are going to probably focus on books that came out more recently. So in that case, you might want to do a revised edition, get a new ISBN, and then you'll have a current book out there.
Cool. And what's an ISBN?
An ISBN is the number that is assigned to your book that indicates it helps the agency that collects the sales data to know how many sales there are of your book. You can, for instance, use Amazon's free ISBNs, but if you want to be on any platform besides Amazon, then you have to get your own ISBN. And to do that, you go to a company called Bowker, Bowker, that has ISBNs for sale. There are other places that have ISBNs for sale as well, but unfortunately, they don't work on any of the publishing sites. If you want to be on Amazon or BarnesandNoble.com or anybody else, the other ISBNs don't work, so you've got to go to Bowker.
Okay.
Or you can go to an agency like SkillBytes, where we buy our ISBNs in bulk, and we actually sell them for a cheaper price than Bowker. And when you use our ISBN, you get published by SkillBytes on your copyright page, which indicates that you have not self-published your book. It gives you a little bit more credibility when you're actually published by somebody else.
Absolutely. Yeah, I read a lot myself, and I only read the fantasy books and things like that. But when there's a publisher on there, I recognize them across the board, and I do know that it's easier for them to get out there. All right, cool. So the next thing that we talked about was marketing, like using it as a marketing tool. So what are some things, like how have people marketed in the past with their book, just beyond just actually writing it, but then also, it'll kind of help us talk into the PR of things, like how do they leverage their book as well?
Right. Well, one of the ways that a few of my authors have been very successful at using their book is giving it away. Now, a book costs somewhere between $10 and $20 typically, and your royalty on that might be somewhere around 45% or so for your book on Amazon. So for a $20 book, you might wind up with something like $8 of royalty from the sale. But if you give your book away to prospects, let's say you give it to 100 prospects, and one of them hires you because they really like the information you had in your book, you're going to make a lot more money than if you had sold the copy of your book to that one prospect, or even to the 100 prospects. So having that book to use as a prospecting tool is pretty powerful. One of my authors is a chiropractor, and he only gives his book away. He doesn't do any other marketing other than the fact that he has the front cover of his book on his website and a link to go to Amazon to buy it. And he has given his book to other doctors in the area. So he's a chiropractor who works obviously on backs and necks and things like that. And he's given his book to orthopedics so that if they have patients who want to go to a chiropractor, they can give the book to that patient and say, I recommend Dr. John. He's the author of this book. So he's gotten a lot of referrals from other doctors. And when people come into his waiting room, they can pick up a free copy of his book there. And he knows that it's been a really powerful tool for him, because whenever new customers or patients come in, they have to fill out a form to indicate where they heard about him. And he figures out that in the couple of years since his book came out, he's gotten well over $60,000 of new customers because they found out about his book. Could have been that one of his patients gave them a copy, or they saw it on his website or whatever, but they learned about his book, and that's how they found out about him and came to sign up with him.
Cool. Besides a giveaway, how have people used their books with, say, online and digital and even, say, what do you call them? events where they could give them away, or
Sure. Yeah, you can give it away as a raffle prize, or at a trade show if you have your fish bowl. Somebody can you pull out somebody's business card that they've put in and give them a free copy of your book. You can build your list with giving an offer of a free ebook to people who opt into your list, or even just a chapter of your list. You can send a copy of your book with your proposals that you send out. I mean, one of my authors found that she was considered for a much, much larger project than she normally gets because she included a copy of her book with her proposal. Gave her quite a bit more credibility and really elevated her whole platform. And speaking about platforms, that's a great way to leverage a book, which is to use your book as a lead-in to more expensive programs like a group coaching program, or a mastermind group, or an online course. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can build a whole platform around your book, because in your book, you're not answering all the needs of the reader. They're going to want more. And whatever you can come up with to give them that extra information, you can charge significantly more for it. So instead of making maybe $8 from a book, you can get $195 or $495 or $997 or $1997 or whatever from people signing up for your other programs.
Absolutely. And I had something in my head and it just ran out the other way. It'll come back to me. But with the kind of bouncing off of that, we were talking about helping with your PR. So, booking speaking engagements, radio, newspaper, getting, different kind of stories written about you and stuff like that. How have your people that have worked with you before, how have they gone about using that as a leverage piece for them?
Right. Well, it helps if you have what's called a one sheet. And a one sheet is essentially what it sounds like, except that it's a front and a back, but it's just a one pager that's very graphically designed to be pleasing to the site, but has all of the relevant information on it. Who you are, what your area of expertise is, your book, maybe some testimonials, what other speaking engagements have you had, or other podcasts you've been on, or articles you've published, or whatever else, so that somebody looking at it will know exactly whether you're the right person for the opportunity that they have. And then you have to do some legwork, either you or hiring somebody to do it for you, to determine what are the opportunities where you would be able to be in front of your target audience. There are so many different podcasts out there, but it doesn't help you if you get on a podcast that doesn't have your target audience that's going to be listening to it. So you need to do some research, and there are directories you can use to determine which podcasts are the ones that are going to be most appropriate for you. And then you want to reach out to the podcast host and introduce yourself, send them your one sheet, find out if they would like a copy of your book that you can send them, follow up with them when you haven't heard back. Likewise with event planners and industry associations and other places that have speaking opportunities. It's a matter of finding out who the right ones are, the ones that are going to give you that stage in front of your target audience, finding out who the right people to contact are, what they're looking for from you, providing that information, doing a lot of follow-up with them. And there are people out there. I have a connection with somebody who does all of that legwork for you. So if anybody's interested, they can reach out to me and I would be happy to provide that resource.
Awesome. And so what are the things that we put on a one sheet when it comes to your book? Like what are some good ideas of what to put on there?
Well, you can include your headshot, a little bit about yourself, and the front cover of your book could go on it. Some of the testimonials that you've gotten from your book. You could include a book description and include other topics that you might want to be invited to speak on. You might want to describe how you help people. How, part of your bio could talk about how long you've been doing this type of work. So those are some of the key ingredients that you'd want to include.
Yeah. Also, basically you're creating a resume out of it. All the other credentials and things that you have.
It is a lot like a resume. It's a bit less formal, and you want to make it, again, eye-pleasing. So designing that one sheet, it's not like a boring resume. You want it to stand out.
Absolutely.
It's colorful.
Yeah. Okay. So moving into what the last part of that piece. So when someone's thinking of getting into writing a book, I think that it's fair to let them know the scope of what they're getting into. So, some basic ideas on what people can expect from time commitment, energy involved, things they need to get together. Like all the stuff that's involved is basically, like outline some of that for me.
Sure. Well, it helps if you have a roadmap of how to write your book. That will accelerate it. And if you just start with writing the book itself, the chances are that you're not going to be including things that you might otherwise have wanted. You might be including things that you ultimately didn't need to include. So having that roadmap is pretty helpful. And again, people can reach out to me. I have a very short ebook that lays out a 10-step roadmap for getting your book written. Writing the book is stage one. And all of my 10 steps are steps within stage one. But it's actually not the most time-consuming step. Stage two is the publishing step, and that can take a lot more time than writing the book. Depends on how long of a book you're writing and how much time you have to devote to writing your book. I mean, I've had authors who have written a book in a month, and I have other authors who have taken 4+ years to get their books written. Not because their books are incredibly long. They just didn't have a lot of time to devote to getting their book written. I think if you're planning to write a short book, something that you can use as a lead magnet and a giveaway, might be in the 50, 70 page range or something like that, you ought to be able to get that done in a month. If you can spend maybe 5 hours a week on your book, it's not going to take you that much time, especially if you already have some content that you can repurpose. If you have given some speeches on your topic, if you have written some blog posts, or maybe you've published some articles, or you've got an online course or a group coaching program, or anything where you can take some of that material and repurpose it in your book, then you're not going to need to spend the time to rewrite what you've already got. The second phase, the publishing phase, that involves finding an editor, because if you want your book to enhance your credibility, it's got to be well written. And even if you're a really good writer, the chances are you've got some errors in your book. And an editor can point out those errors and help you fix them, so that your book doesn't actually detract from your credibility. There's also layout design, having your book really look like a professional book rather than a Word document that happens to be between the front cover and the back cover. There's also the cover design. You want to have an attractive cover that catches the eye and makes people want to take a look at your book. There's 3 aspects to the cover. There's the front cover, there's the back cover, and there's the spine. If you're seeking to get speaking engagements, for instance, you need to have a book that is lengthy enough that the width of the spine is wide enough to have text. If you're writing that 50-page giveaway book, your spine is not going to be wide enough for text. Unfortunately, event planners really prefer books that have text on the spine. So there you're looking at a book of at least 110, preferably 120 plus pages, so that you've got a wide enough spine that you can have legible text on it. On your back cover, you need to have some key information. People are going to want to read testimonials or at least a book description so that they understand, if they don't know from your topic and your subtitle, your title and your subtitle, what your book's about, they can see that on your back cover. And people also like to read a little bit about the author. So you want to maybe a little author bio and a headshot. Besides that, as I mentioned, there's the ISBNs that you need to get, and you need to have a different ISBN for an ebook and a print book. And if you have a hardback as well as a paperback, that's requiring a third ISBN, and you need the barcode for the back cover. Then there's uploading the book to whatever the platform is that you want to publish it on, such as Amazon, where it's free to get your book up on Amazon. But it's also incredibly important that you do it right. And if you haven't done it before, the likelihood is you're going to make an error along the way, and that's going to be a problem for you. I have had so many people come to me and say, I or my admin or whoever got my book up on Amazon for me, and nobody can find it. Well, why is nobody finding it? Well, it could be that they didn't have it in the right category, or they didn't use keywords, or their book description didn't have any keywords in it so that when people were searching, they could find it. Or in one case, the author put a registered symbol at the end of its title. And if people were searching for the book without the registered symbol, the book didn't come up. So there's so many different ways that people can do it wrong. It's having somebody shepherd you through it to make sure that you're going to get all of the value from your book after you've spent all that time and effort getting it written.
Yeah. So the publishing stage, what would be a guideline on time frames from like short to long? Okay.
Well, the time frame is going to vary depending on the length of the book, because editing takes twice as long for a 100-page book as for a 50-page book, and a 200-page book is twice as long as a 100-page book. So let's say that your book is your 120-page book that you are writing so that you have the text on the spine. You can figure that between the editing, the layout, the cover design, getting your ISBNs, getting up on Amazon will be somewhere in the 4 to 6 month time frame, assuming that you can provide pretty prompt responses. So when you get a sample cover from the cover designer, you can't sit on that for 3 weeks and decide, oh, you know what, I think I would rather change it to this. Then the time frame is going to be blown. But if you can get back to the publisher or the individual that you have doing each of these steps relatively quickly, then you ought to be able to get your book out within 6 months.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So
stage 3 is the marketing stage. And to me, that's the most time consuming and potentially the most frustrating and the most expensive. Because most people who have expertise to write a book don't have expertise in marketing. So you might wind up doing a lot of things that don't work. I had one of my authors who spent $5,000 in a campaign for getting in newspapers. It was a PR campaign. And it didn't get him a single sale. He spent all this money. He got his book in all of these different newspapers, but none of them were specifically directed to his target audience. So it's mistakes like that that can really detract from getting the results that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many different ways to market a book. I mean, there's one author, his name is John Kremer, who wrote a book, 1,001 Ways to Market Your Book.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to figure out, what do you really want from your marketing? What are you trying to promote? What are your objectives? And then you can try to figure out, well, what type of marketing would best get me the results that I'm looking for. And then you have to find the right people who know how to do that marketing.
Okay.
If you want to do a bestseller campaign, for instance, I have one colleague who charges $9,000 for an Amazon bestseller campaign, and I have other colleagues who charge $3,000. And both of them have good results. So you might wind up having to do a fair amount of legwork to find the right people to do your campaigns. At Skill Bites, we provide a variety of services. We provide all of the book publishing services as well as the marketing services. And what we don't provide, we have colleagues that we can refer people to.
Awesome. All right. So we kind of talked, well, we didn't kind of, we talked about the book, creating it, what goes into it, how long it takes, and all that side of the stuff. Now, the other thing I want to kind of talk about for the remainder of what we're going to do is, if someone is thinking about getting into publishing or becoming someone who will go out there and do markets for books, the kind of things I'm looking for is, what are they getting into? What are some things they definitely should have in place to want to get into something like this? And, what can they expect?
Well, first, they need to figure out what kind of book do they want to focus on. Mm-hmm. You can try to focus on everything, but I think most people in business understand that when you try to focus on a really big topic, you don't do as well as when you niche down. So do you want to focus on business books? Do you want to focus on mysteries? Do you want to focus on memoirs? Do you want to focus on poetry or cookbooks or whatever? Pick what's going to be most interesting to you to focus on. Now, I can talk to people about what's involved with publishing business books, but I don't do the other types of books, so I'm not sure if what I would be sharing would be as relevant as talking to somebody else in that field. But I would certainly recommend talking to another publisher who does the type of book that you're interested in becoming a publisher of. I have had pretty good experience talking with other publishers. They're pretty open about sharing what they understand about the publishing industry. There are also industry associations. There's one called IBPA. So if you're going to be going into publishing, I recommend that you join them. Independent Book Publishers Association, I think is what the acronym stands for. It's relatively inexpensive, and they have a ton of good resources that you can get. So you should do something like that. There's a fair amount of trade shows that you can go to and get information as well. But know that it's a long haul. It's not something that you can get up and running and be successful at quickly. You can get up and running quickly, but if you want to get a lot of customers in that you're helping, that takes time to do. You need a website, and you need a marketing campaign, and you need customer service, and you need a good network of people. Either you have to hire the people who are going to do the editing and book layout and cover design, etc., or you need to have those colleagues that you can subcontract that work out to. Decide what you want to do yourself, and you've got to have a good system for managing everything. You can't all of a sudden forget that the cover designer hasn't gotten back to me in 3 months. I better follow up with that person, because you're going to have very angry customers at that point. And that's not going to bode well for your business.
Definitely. All right. So definitely takes a lot to get into. Great on those places they can go for resources. You mentioned one or two of them, but what are some definite positions that you either need to fill yourself or find people for that would be involved in being publisher? So you mentioned graphics and editor, but what's a more comprehensive list of those people that would need?
Sure. Well, it depends on what you want to offer. For instance, within Skill Bites, we have a cadre of ghostwriters for the people who want somebody to write their book for them. The different ghostwriters have not just ghostwriting expertise, but subject matter expertise. So we have some ghostwriters who specialize in, say, medical books versus legal books. Then we have more general ghostwriters who have fairly broad expertise in business topics. There are editors. There's different levels of editing. So there's copy editing and developmental editing and proofreading. And some editors do all of them, but generally those who do developmental editing don't do copy editing and proofreading also. So we have different editors with different skills. There's the layout designers. And for business books, there's one type of layout designer, but if you're going to do a cookbook or a children's book, then you might want a layout designer who has expertise in those genres. But since I don't do them, I just have the layout designers who generally have proficiency in designing business books. If you are going to be going into the children's book area, then you're going to need illustrators, because children's books won't succeed very well if they don't have really good pictures in them. And then cover designers. I have different levels of cover design. I have a very inexpensive cover designer, and her covers are good, but they're not terrific. And then I have other cover designers who are more expensive, but whose covers are much more attractive, much more eye-catching. And I have to have multiple ones, because if I have, for instance, with editing, if my editors are busy and somebody needs editing, I don't want to go to them and say, I'd love to take on your editing project, but I can't get to it for 12 weeks. they're not going to stick around. They're going to go someplace else. So you need to have the volume of people to be able to handle the customers who come in.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really good. Okay, so then I think I had one other question. Any other things or thoughts that would come up that you know, on what we've talked about, or anything else that you think people should know about getting into writing a book or the industry?
Well, I think that when you are first deciding that you want to write a book, it is very important to be clear on why you want to write your book. What do you want your book to do for you? What are your objectives? If you aren't clear on that, then you run the risk that you'll be writing a book that doesn't get you results that you really want from it. You might not write on the right topic. You might not be directing your book to the right audience. And you might be wasting your time, which is kind of a shame. So that is really important. And then if you're getting into the publishing business, why are you getting into that business? What is it that you want to do? And do you have the financial security to be able to be in this business for a period of time of, say, 3 years without making a lot of money and having a fair amount of expenses along the way? You have to have a good plan on how you're going to get through that initial period where you're not going to be bringing a lot of money in and you're going to be putting out a lot of money toward promoting your business.
Awesome. And that kind of touched on what my last question was anyway. So, all right, a lot to unpack there, and hope everyone got a lot of value out of what we talked about. I know I did, and I definitely am super excited to eventually write a book myself. I definitely see the value in it. So thank you so much, Judy, for joining us, and everyone who watched the video. Thanks for checking in. Don't forget to go to our networking event tonight, and we will see you next time.